Well, social media has been abuzz with videos showing alleged police and military brutality. Police watchdog IPID also says it has received a number of complaints. Now, police and the army have been tasked with enforcing the national lockdown. But what is the right amount of force that must be used to ensure compliance? To discuss this, I'm joined this morning by Mothokosizi Maphumulo. He's from Adams and Adams Attorneys. And Mothokosizi, a very good morning to you. And before we actually get into our chat, I would just like to play a little clip of an interview that my colleague Ronald did earlier with some refugees there in Cape Town, those who were moved out of the Methodist Church, and a pregnant woman describing what happened to her and her family. So if you'll just allow us to have a listen for your sake as well, so we can continue this, let's just take a look at that once again.
My experience from yesterday is that I got beaten by the police. Very bad on my back, and I'm pregnant. Twice their weapons is very sore. They beat my baby, she's still lying down there. I don't know until this time why. The child couldn't sleep. And me, I'm pregnant. First of all, this country, women first. Why this country is so abusive? Only on refugees, why? I'm not placed to stay in this country. I can never stay here. I need to be at a safe place.
You also mentioned that you had to protect your children during that
I need to protect who were together with my husband. They beat my husband up. They beat my children up. They even beat me. I showed them I'm pregnant. They didn't care at all. They had to beat me. I'm in big pain here. I'm in pain. They don't care.
All right, back to our chat now with the litigation attorney Mothokosizi Maphumulo. Mothokosizi, you've had a chance to listen to that clip. You might have seen it a little earlier as well. It's one of many stories we're hearing this morning. So, I mean, it just seems like so many violations in that one incident. It is subject to investigation still, but I mean, everything that could be done wrong seems to have been done wrong to these people in this case as well during this time. Mothokosizi, can you hear me? All right, we seem to have a problem with that Skype connection there. We'll try and get Mothokosizi back on the line there to talk about law enforcement brutality versus the law there. But back to the story earlier about alleged police brutality and social media, where we've seen videos showing alleged police and military brutality. Police watchdog IPID also receiving a number of complaints. The police and army tasked with enforcing the national lockdown. But what is the right amount of force that must be used to ensure compliance? We've got Mothokosizi Maphumulo from Adams and Adams Attorneys back on Skype with us now. Mothokosizi, just checking that you can hear me this time.
Yes, I can hear you. Sorry.
All right. So I'm hoping you got a chance to listen to that clip, or maybe to have watched it earlier when Ronald was out in Cape Town chatting to refugees there. I mean, it just seems and that incident obviously subject to investigation still, but if that was the case, I mean, that is unacceptable on the part of the military and police.
Yes, absolutely. I've had a chance to listen, and I also did watch the video. From the legal perspective, it's unacceptable. There's no justification for it, because you can see that it's a pregnant woman, and you know, as much as it is a lockdown and there are certain prohibitions on the movement of people, the law, well, there are some few exceptions and exclusions which permit people to be out on the streets, because the daily demands of people do allow for it. But brutality has no place in our law, and that's not a legal permit. Well, a first approach that should be adopted by the law enforcement officers. Well,
you know, with the bearing in mind that this is something the entire country, the entire world is actually dealing with for the first time. We haven't been here, you know, any of us, in a situation like this. So what should have been the briefing, or how should the military and police have been prepared, especially on both sides? South Africans don't know how to navigate this, and authorities don't know how to navigate this. But being the ones in authority, you would imagine that police officers and the SANDF would have been given some proper direction, rather than the president just saying, go out and be humane about the way you actually treat people. On the ground, it's a different story altogether.
No, certainly. Well, at very least, if you are in the CNDF as a member of the CNDF, as a member of the SAPS, you should have the basics as to how should and if and when certain events happen, though this current one is probably could not have been foreseen. But in whatever space you are, you should always be ready for or have some basic knowledge as to how we would approach a particular event should it happen. I understand it just happened so abruptly, like no one could have foreseen it, and the preparations could not be done thoroughly, but the basics should have been there in the first place, and the officials themselves and their leaders should have tried to do maybe some a better job in terms of preparing our law enforcement officers before sending them out, because what we are seeing now is totally unacceptable.
And bearing all of that in mind, and who should have done what in this instance, Mothokosizi, what recourse do citizens have if they feel that they've been brutalized and treated unfairly by a police officer or a soldier?
There will certainly be criminal cases, but for the victims, civil suits can be instituted, because this is attack on their constitutional rights, their statutory rights, and from all the other sources of law, it's total breach of their rights, and therefore they can institute claims and they can claim for various heads of damages, depending on the circumstances of each particular case, and each case will depend on its peculiar prevailing circumstances.
And even in this time, where people are still trying to find their place, yes, we are going to week 2. Like we see so many regulations, ministers are going back and forth on them. There's so much confusion over. There's some grey areas as well. So if somebody, yes, maybe has broken the law, they've gone out for a walk, made a mistake, like we saw earlier, somebody going for a jog, not having understood what this means, but how they're treated and how they are, I'm going to say reprimanded, or how they're approached by a police officer or a soldier makes a big difference to how things pan out. So even if they come back and say, but yes, you as a citizen broke the law and we had to act that way, would that be a good enough explanation?
No, it would not, because the legal position in terms of how the policeman or the CNDF members should be handling the situation is not to resort to the excessive force. The legal position is, well, it happens even in our...
All right. We seem to have a problem with that connection there. That's Mothokosizi Maphumulo. He's from Adams and Adams Attorneys, just giving us some insight into what you could do if you feel you've been unfairly treated. Just a pity that we couldn't get clarity on that last one. Maybe we'll have a chance to clarify that in the coming days.